The hermit of Lotus Peak was speaking to the assembly, and he asked, why is it that the teachers, the patriarchs, everybody from the past, why didn't they stay here? And then he answered, because it has no power for the way. No power for the way. And this Koan about the brocade, flowers, mountains, rivers, indigo. For me, it's that first part. The self and all the beautiful things in this world crumble into ruins. That has been alive for me. And not so much, we had a retreat not long ago, hanging out with the story of the Buddha. And as part of hanging out with that story, we each were invited to find the place in the story that lit up for us, was alive for us, spoke to us about where we were at that time. And for me, it was that place in the story where the Buddha has snuck out with his friend from the castle, the palace, where he's been protected from seeing anything disturbing. And he sees things that are disturbing. And one of those things was a bent old, little old lady, with a cane. I don't know if it said she had a cane in the story, but it was like when that part of the story came, it was like a hologram of her was in front of my eyes. And that was the part of the story that lit up for me. Sickness, old age, and death. And, I suppose John being in the hospital and all has something to do with how that's been alive for me. But that's not what's been in the foreground. What's been in the foreground is everything changes. Impermanence. Not impermanence so much in the case of my mortality, I'm going to die, but just impermanence in the case that it just keeps changing and changing and changing. As I witness it in my mind, as I witness it out there, it just keeps changing. What is the one thing that doesn't change? That changing doesn't change. Sounds a little strange to say it, and I've been, kind of reminiscing about change. Particularly in this community and in the way we practice now, and the way we practiced in the past, how much it has changed. And the hermit of Lotus Peak, I hear him saying that. Why isn't they didn't stay here? And by here, I'm projecting, assuming that he's talking about he has reached a place where, things aren't a problem. Things are flowing. It's nice. I want to stay here. and he's saying, well, he's noticed that, those people who seem to have reached that state don't stay there. And he's asking why. And he's not asking the gathered community as much as he's sharing this question. He's asking himself. Which is really so much what this practice is about, I'm just sharing my practice with you for what it's worth. And what is it worth? Well, it's worth, it's like you're sharing your practice with me. We're sharing our practices with each other. We get together and have breakout rooms and talk about, well, what was the Koan for you? What was the Koan for you? Radical stuff, that. And we're just sharing our practices with each other. Because I'm sitting up here talking with the microphone stuck in my wherever. It's no different. Like I said on that first night, what my first teacher told me, having a teacher is in a state of mind. It's not a relationship with somebody else, it's a state of mind in which you're willing to learn from everybody, everywhere, all the time. That was a little extreme, I think he was attached. It's an aspiration, I suppose. It's an impossible, like a vow is impossible to keep. It's an intention. I appreciate having started with Tibetans and how much they emphasize the importance and power of intention. If you set the intention, then whatever happens after that, no matter what happens after that. I set this intention, and the intention at that time was for the awakening, for the enlightenment of all other sentient beings, which is inclusive as it sounds. Now it feels a little limiting because, well, what about the non-sentient beings? What about that rock holding my door open? What about that being? Anyways, and I partly grabbed this because of the next part after the hermit asks that question, and he answers it because it has no power for the way. And then he throws his staff over his shoulder and he goes off into the 10,000 peaks. I think that's the world. We're going to go off into the 10,000 peaks from here. And how important that is, because we can't stay here. We have to go there to make it real. There's a koan that we sit with, spend time time with about you who are on top of the 100-foot pole. Your practice is not yet real. You must take a step off the 100-foot pole. And that's going into 10,000 peaks, taking that step off the 100-foot pole, out of the place where it's like, this is really nice. You know, father quail come by every afternoon with their little walnuts with feet and beaks, scurrying around. So, wild turkeys, deer. That's nice. I don't want to live here. And how I don't have to in any way squash that feeling. It's nice. I don't want to live here. There's nothing wrong with that feeling. If I grab onto it, I notice things don't quite flow so well. I think early on, somehow my idea was I had to get rid of those feelings. They were not good to have those feelings somehow. You know, not staying here was like not having the feelings. But no, that has no power for the way. The way was the way of transformation, growth, intimacy. And so after the hermit of Lotus Peak, and I had a conversation for a while, I think it was because of the stick, and I thought I can pick up the Kyosaku, you know. I was directing my theater. It's kind of fun. I once gave a talk wearing a bathing suit, flippers, and goggles. More so now than then. This isn't so much about performance as, you know, part of Koan practice is embodying Koan. In several ways, really. So you can articulate something quite beautiful and accurate about the Koan, even without knowing it, repeating what ancient masters of the past had said. And that's good, maybe. But the real question is, okay, what's that in your life? And the other real question is, what is that right now, right here, show me? Right? Show me what you understand about it has no power for the way. Embody it here, now. Not a story about when it was alive for you in your life, but here and now. And I hated that part of Koan practice. It was, I cheapened it, I thought. It just cheapened it. This is serious, this is spiritual, this is not charades. Because, you know, sitting out, both in Hawaii and Kamakura, we would sit in a line waiting to get into the dosan after running to the line. We used to run. People would push and shove people out of the way to get there faster. But things keep changing. We don't do that anymore. Right? Change. Things changing. And because you're in a line not so far away from, usually not so far away from where the action is happening, you hear things, sounds, laughter. What are they laughing about? I was thinking, this is serious. Why are they laughing? And then when I went in and there was no laughter, I come out going, why wasn't there any laughter? And I could hear people flopping around on the floor and making weird noises and all kinds of things. You know, in my imagination sort of filled in the blanks and going, well, I guess they're charades. And I couldn't let myself let it be that. So I got in the way. And I don't know, time passed and my attachment to that particular opinion kind of loosened and loosened and loosened. And I remember sitting in the Lotus line, and this thought came through my mind that kind of shocked me. And the thought was, I don't care if it takes standing on my head and spitting wooden nickels. I'm going to do it. I don't know what that spitting, I meant to look up spitting wooden nickels. I don't know where that comes from, but it just, that's what I felt. And I went in and it wasn't really any different than the other times I went in. Partly because I didn't grab onto that thought. It was there, went through, I certainly noticed it, but I didn't grab onto it. I didn't go in and try to do something. It was noted. It wasn't even something I did. Once I kind of laughed actually with the thought went through. I said, ha. And I don't feel that way right now. That part of show me is like my favorite part. And things keep changing. I hated it. Now it's my favorite. Things keep changing. The mountains are blanketed with flowers like brocade. And as I was sitting in that, another Koan came along to join in the conversation. And that was a story about some teacher who had gone off for a walk and came back, and somebody came up to him and said, hey, where'd you go? And he says, well, I went out following the scented grasses, and I came back following the falling flowers. Because after they bloom, they fall, don't they? Change. Things keep changing. I spent some time in the Japanese temple with Gaia, helping the abbot there polish his English translation of something that Dogen wrote. And when I arrived, it was a huge, beautiful, air-conditioned complex that was like a holiday inn, really in comfort in Bukai, India. Right? I was invited to stay if I could help. So, yeah. And when I arrived, I would say the altar in that temple was from wall to wall. It was huge. And the flower arrangement was a banana tree, basically, that had been cut and put in a vase. It was kind of beautiful. Green leaves and the thing hanging down. It was like, wow, that's beautiful. Wow, it's so big. Wow. And I was there a month, and it never got changed. And I thought, early on, after about a week, and I was looking a little, I went to the abbot, Shibuya. I said, Shibuya-san, do you need help taking that down so you can change it? He says, oh no, everything dies. And it just stayed there, dying more and more, shriveling. Yeah. And he just let it be there. Change, everything changes. And when I realized that I was going to pick up the Kyosaku I was talking about embodiment, well, this is what it is. It's me allowing myself to more fully be intimate with that koan. Somehow it felt like that. You know, if my teacher would have said, "Join me," I would have grabbed the stick and put it over my shoulder and walked out. Something like that. But it also was the cause of, I was the head of practice for 10 years. So I'm familiar with this stick. Not this stick. Not this stick because things keep changing, but I used to keep track of how many I broke when I hit people. They asked to be hit. They were requesting, and the hit was, oh, that wasn't a good one. Anyways, it was a massage, basically. That's the way I experienced it. Receiving it when it was time for me to have the opportunity to deliver it. It was massage. That was like the rhythm of sesshin. And at the beginning, I think our first session was 1989. We were facing the wall. So that you just heard it. Sometimes you wince because you knew you hit a bone. Or a sheep. But there was something, it's like, wakes you up. The sound wakes you up. The thought that coming my way wakes me up. And we never gave the stick unless requested. In Kamakura, you had an option. You could request it or just say, hit me whenever. And somebody hit me whenever once. As I don't know where I was before being hit. And I don't know where I was when I was hit. The first thing I was aware of was I was in the air. Literally off my cushion in the air because I jumped so high when I got hit. Because it was just, I don't know where, I was off somewhere. La La Land. And boy, it was so great. Bungee jumping, it was like that. I was at the end of it and suddenly, I'm back. But everything changes. And we talked about it. And I said, well, if we're appreciating this as a massage, the whole world is medicine. Why not just give massages too? And my hands got very tired because now we had two signals. It's like, if you want to be hit, if you want a massage, things keep changing. And I'm the head of practice, so I'm the one that's got to do it, right? But literally, my thumbs were killing me from doing the massage because more and more the massages are more popular. So we had auxiliary massagers who started the other end of the dojo around. And hitting somebody with a stick with the intention of relieving tension, helping, is a very intimate thing. Especially when you hit the bone and you hurt somebody. Ouch. And they're willing to let you do it again. Taking that chance. It's very intimate. But to actually lay hands on somebody and then have them sort of point down lower. We don't do that anymore. They just keep changing. They just keep changing. Like that river that just keeps flowing and flowing. And Heraclitus said, you cannot step in the same river twice because it keeps changing. You cannot step in the same life twice. It keeps changing. So the other wander down memory lane. Let me know what time it is here. Was connected to this, the story about whatever we call it. Well, John's never missed a session, ever. That's going back to 1989. But oh no, actually, that goes back to 1979. And I was only in Hawaii for 3 years, from 79 to 82, but he never missed a retreat then either. He wasn't teaching, but he was had a practice. 6 one-week retreats a year doing, he was on Maui doing intensive stuff. A couple years, I think. But I do remember one time when he missed something. It was how I started teaching. The first time I taught. At that time, we were sitting, the Santa Rosa group was sitting in a synagogue near Shalom in Kotati, near Santa Rosa. We were sitting down in Oakland in a Montessori school or something. And John was offering Doksan once a week, so we mentioned that, on Wednesdays, 6 o'clock in the morning to 8. And I was his liaison. I would drive up to Kotati, get there early, open up air shalom, turn on whatever, and roll out whatever and set it up. Set up his room, set up the dojo. Excuse me. It was kind of great because then there was a whole group of us that would get together in Kotati and have breakfast together and schmooze. Someone once said, no conversation, no Zen. And it doesn't matter where that conversation takes place. Cafe in Kotati was just fine. And so, so one Tuesday night, I'm going to go drive up the next morning. I get a call from John. Hey, John. I'm sick as a dog, you do it. That was it. I'm sick as a dog, you do it. Okay. Click. That was my training. I can't say that. Watching him teach, being taught by him and other teachers. But it was, kind of like being thrown in the deep end of the pool. But wait, it gets better. So I'm going, okay, now I'm going to not only teach for the first time, I'm going to be my own liaison and teach. Which was like overwhelm on top of overwhelm. How am I going to do that? How are they going to know? What am I going to do? And someone came early and I asked them if they would be liaison. He said, yeah, okay. I think that's what happened. And I went in and I sat down where John usually sat, kind of terrified. Although it was, the good thing was I didn't know until the night before. So I couldn't stew in that too long. If I had a week, boy, it would have been paralyzing. And so I'm thinking, okay, I got my Dosan notes here. And, John looks at his notes. I talk with him, so that's okay, that's kosher. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm trying not to think. My heart's pounding, and I'm scared, and I'm excited, and all that shit. And then the first person came, and things keep changing. In those days, when we went to Dosan, we did it the same way that they do it in the Holy Land. So you went to the room, you opened the door, and you did a full bow across the threshold down to the ground. And then you closed the door, and you did another full bow. And then you went in front of the teacher. I think we did another full bow. But this time we stayed down on the ground. You sort of scooched up on your knees. That's what we were doing. We don't do that anymore. You may have noticed. But you are free to do whatever it is you feel moved to do when you come, just to let you know. We don't say how you should do anything, pretty much, because it's part of the DNA of back in the day in 1989. People coming from not only different meditation traditions, Vipassana and Tibetan, but different Zen traditions within Zen where they have different rituals and they did things different ways. And it is not, one of the things that has not changed about this group is I think it's welcoming nature. It's like, oh, that's what you did, okay, that's fine. I mean, there was a time when a woman sort of snuck into one of our retreats. She was from Tasmania. She was kind of stalking John. She gave a false name when she registered because she knew she wouldn't be allowed to come if she gave her real name. Right? And she insisted on chanting the Sino-Japanese version of the Four Vows, which at that time we were not doing anymore. And there were limits, but generally, some people have been trained to gasho when someone comes next to them or across from them. That's what you've been trained to do. People come in and go, should I bow? I said, well, do you want to bow? If you want to bow, make an experiment, bow, see what happens. Don't bow, see what happens. It's all about, the inquiry. So this person comes in, and I'm trying not to look. The door's over here, and the person's going to bow across the threshold, so they're kind of in my peripheral vision, and I'm thinking, just don't look at him, just don't look at him. I looked at him. There was someone named Alan Sanoki, who was at the time the co-abbot of the Berkeley Zen Center, sort of branch of the San Francisco Zen Center. And Alan had been coming up. I knew it because I was the one who rang the bell and sent him in to talk to John as his inquiry into Koan practice in a different way than is done in his tradition. After this. And he was 1 to 100, the worst possible person to walk through that door for me, because it's like, shit, he's an abbot. I'm going to be exposed as a fraud, right? not an uncommon thing, is that fear of being exposed as a fraud. It's kind of interesting how common it is. But him, being who he was, did not look up. He did his bow here. He did his bow there. He did his bow here. And at the last bow, you're on your knees and you go down and you do this from your knees. And his eyes came up, his mouth dropped open. That did not help my confidence. But I got through it. But I remembered that. That memory of John not making it once to something. And how that was the beginning of something for me. But he doesn't offer Lotus Peak anymore. Hasn't for a long time. There was a time when he did it under an umbrella in the rain in his backyard in Santa Rosa. But things keep changing, right? Things keep changing. One of the things that's kind of fun for me, as I remembered, was the liturgy kept changing. We started out, the 4 vows were in Sino-Japanese. Shigu, Sei, Gano, Shujo, and Sei, Gano, like that. And then it started to, then it went to English. Kind of, boilerplate English translation, maybe like, that was part of the liturgy actually, even in Hawaii. It was the Sino-Japanese version, there was the English version. Though the many beings are numberless, I vow to save them. The next part was my favorite part. Though greed, hatred, and ignorance rise endlessly, I vow to cut them off. Like it just hurt. Yeah. And then that changed. And the thing is, it was kind of fun and helpful for me in my own. I could get attached to things easily like that. And people would come into the community at some point where we're in like the 3rd or 4th version of the English version of the vows, whatever they were. And they love them. And they're the only version they've ever experienced. And then they change. And people left because of that. They left because we had it was like blasphemy. We had changed the Holy Scriptures. And telling them that, this is the 6th or 7th time we've done it, didn't help because of that attachment. And not wanting things to change, not being open to things changing. Trying to stop the flow of the Indigo River or something like that, And I had my own attachments, Kanzi, I don't know, that's a stretch. Sounds like a cat got run over by something. That was my reaction. What can I say? Now it's kind of like, it's sweet, it's bluesy, things keep changing in me. And I hate change, basically. I'm getting better. So the way the practice keeps changing. And I think it's helpful to know that the practice keeps changing, because if you think you're making a mistake, don't worry about it. It just keeps changing. I make mistakes because it keeps changing. I used to be able to recite the entire Sutra group from memory. I can't anymore because it keeps changing. And there's a loss and a gain. last night, Tess mentioned that she had noticed that people coming in were sort of feeling less bad about their practice in a way, not doing as well as they could, or comparing their this to somebody else's that, you know. And yeah, I know that myself, sure. And it was the occasion for me to remember talking to Yamada about his experience. And I want to read you a part of his experience. I think probably don't have the internet. We may have to wait on that. But his experience is in 3 pillars of Zen. Japanese businessman K-Y, I think. And, you know, I had read it and thought, well, you know, he told me that I had a peep through the wall into the other side that was real. And, you know, I was comparing my peep with his explosion, or, you know, the whole wall being blown apart, and feeling less than about it. So I asked him, and my being able to ask him was kind of amazing for me, to be able to ask that. So if you have what feels like, I don't know, a difficult question, even a stupid question, ask it. Ask it. What do you do to this? You know? So I asked him about it, and I'll tell you what he said after I read the, if I can find it. If I can find it, I'll read, thank you. See, what about the nonsense? I don't know, is a computer nonsense? That's... At midnight, I abruptly awakened. At first, my mind was foggy. Then suddenly that question flashed into my consciousness. I came to realize clearly that the mind is no other than mountains, rivers, and the great wide earth, the sun and the moon and the stars, and I repeated it. Then all at once I was struck as though by lightning. In the next instant, heaven and earth crumbled and disappeared. I stubbed my toe. Instantaneously, like surging waves, a tremendous delight welled up in me, a veritable hurricane of delight, as I laughed loudly and wildly. There's no reasoning here, no reasoning at all. He was yelling. The empty sky split in two, then opened its enormous mouth and began to laugh uproariously. Later, one of the members of my family told me that my laughter had sounded inhuman. I was now lying on my back. Suddenly I sat up and struck the bed with all my might and beat the floor with my feet as if trying to smash it, all the while laughing riotously. My wife and youngest son sleeping near me were now awake and frightened. Covering my mouth with her hand, my wife exclaimed, "What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you?" But I wasn't aware of this until told about it afterwards. My son told me later he thought I had gone mad. That's his experience. And I was saying, "Oh, shit." He asked, "When did you see the move?" I told him, and he said, "Yes, congratulations." And he shook my hand. And I'm thinking, apples and orange, not even apples and orange, like apples and orange seeds or something. And what he said was, if you have been carrying a very, very heavy burden and you put it down, your sense of relief is much greater than if you put down a lighter burden. And I don't think that is speaking to, well, you see, you only put down a little bit of your burden, so your relief was just a little bit. It's, your burden was, the burden you put down was less than the burden I put down. Because a little bit of awakening is all of awakening. It doesn't matter how big it is. The sky does not have to crack open. You do not have to feel all 84,000 hair follicles immersed in mood. If you do, well, then you do, and that's who you are. But if that's not who you are, then it's just going to make things more difficult to try to make you somebody you aren't. So really, to appreciate that. If you notice you're trying to get some particular image, idea of what awakening looks like, I think you have all, I will say everybody has experienced awakening. Haven't noticed it, but you've experienced it. Okay, I kind of have a poem. Poems used to be sung, I think, in the beginning. There were songs. And the poem I have is a song that spoke to me about this koan. But before I get there, though, Matt, thank you for asking that question about, well, what does brocade mean? Because I've been asking myself that question. So I checked it out. I kind of like etymology and making up my own etymology. And as far as I understand, going back through that to the Latin, it means something sharp or pointy. Because I'm thinking, well, brocade, this is brocade, right? Brocade is a kind of pattern, design, intricately interwoven, like if somebody was talking about seeing their face in a tree leaves, there was their face, We used to have a talking Christmas tree, it was sort of like that, suddenly there's a face talking to you, and the leaves are moving. It's alive. And I can appreciate how flowers can look like that. But in the same way that I don't think it's about how beautiful the flowers are, like my rakusu was beautiful. I thought it went well with the color of my shirt. I thought about actually, I brought a respectable shirt. The kind of shirt you wear to the office or something. Because I thought, well, there's going to be a refuge ceremony at the end of this retreat. That's serious business. I should bring a serious shirt. And Jesse was talking last night. Yeah, it's interesting. So I looked at the shirt I brought, and I looked at this shirt, and I said, yeah, I like the way the colors go. So brocade, sharp, pointy. And then I'm hearing Dogen. Dogen comes along and says, oh, sharp and pointy, that's like what I said. What did you say? Oh, I said that. Ordinarily, we look out to the world and confirm it out there. It's a tree, it's a whale, it's a deer. When the awakened perspective, the world comes to us and confirms it. It comes out. It feels like that. I mean, maybe you've noticed, it's like I'm walking around and it's like somebody has turned up the color saturation level of everything I'm looking at. The green's greener and the dirt's dirtier, everything. I don't know. I want to say hello to Hanuman. I invite you to do so also. He is the perfect servant. That's his superpower. The perfect servant. And our first retreat here, which was 6-7 years ago, I went up to visit Hanuman. And you know, he's in that little, some of you may have been, he's in that little thing, temple. And it was kind of not as well illuminated in my memory. It was kind of darker in there. And I remember going up and looking in, and these two eyes went right through me, out the back of my head. And the back hairs of the back of my neck stood up. And I didn't know if it was a good feeling or a bad feeling. All I knew it was a very powerful feeling. And I took note of that and honored it, still do as I go up there. Paid my respects, sort of circumambulate a couple times. But things keep changing, and the second time we came here, I went up to say hello to Hanuman. And it was a different Hanuman. I was so disappointed. I was looking forward to that one with the eyes that just go. And this one, it was kind of, I thought he was, I don't know, stupid looking. And I thought, God, they chew on statues. And I asked somebody about it, and they said, oh no, that's the same one. And now I'm like, Jesus, am I like hallucinating? What is that? And then they went on to say, but part of the daily ritual is to apply ghee to his face, which is purified butter. And I had seen him at the place where it was about as thick as it was going to get. And so he didn't have a mouth. He looked like a chimp. Well, he is a chimp. But he had his mouth was like a dog muzzle or something. There were no features here. That's why the eye is just full. And they told me that. So I thought, oh, I gotta go back. So I went back, having been there once, and dismissed this as a poor imitation. And I was a little curious, anxious, because I thought, Jesus, I kind of disrespected Hanuman last time. I don't know what's going to happen this time, but I thought I got to do it. So I went up and looked at him, and all I could see was that he was kind of smirking at me. That wise smirk. And he's still smirking at me. And I kind of like that smirk. Feeling welcomed. Okay. The name of the poem song is For What It's Worth. And I thought, for what it's worth, what does that mean, for what it's worth? I've probably used it. How do I use it? Well, it's usually when I'm offering something with no expectation of the person needing to take it. I'm saying, well, just kind of help me. Maybe it'll help you for what it's worth, maybe not, something like that, There's a kind of openness, it's an invitation to, you don't have to believe this, but this is what I mean. You don't have to use this. So I want to read the verse and then play the song, because I like the song. And so I'm going to do it. There's something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear. Sound familiar? There's something happening here. Why is it I can't see what everybody else can see about me? There's a man with a gun over there telling me I got to beware. I am holding that gun. And how often I threaten myself, criticize myself, shoot myself for not living up to myself or something. You know. So I found the lyrics. It's a protest song, but it speaks to me of the practice and somehow connected to the Koan. I think it's time we stop. Yeah, like now, like during this week, we're stopping. Feeling the space that's there when I stop. Children, what's that sound? And listen. Lin Ji talked about a solitary brightness that knows how to listen, number one. Then came understanding. You gotta be able to listen to understand. The biggest problem with communication is assuming it has taken place, however mental homes. And that's not just interpersonal, that's with ourselves too. We think we know what we know or what we feel. Check it out. Everybody look what's going down. You look, that's what we do. We look at what's happening, what's going down. What am I doing? What am I doing with these thoughts? How am I creating my own suffering? How am I trying to hold back change? I don't want the flowers, petals to fall. It's beautiful the way it is. When the tree withers and the leaves fall, what's that? The golden wind manifesting. The golden wind manifesting. Golden wind, that's pretty good. It's golden, right? There are battle lines being drawn. Oh yeah, I draw those lines. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Nothing grows in the garden of right and wrong. Young people speaking their minds, getting so much resistance from behind. And I thought, wow, it feels true. And yeah, the young person is the me now. And the old me, who they don't go anywhere. He doesn't go anywhere. He's still here. He still thinks that, my nickname used to be the Colonel when I was head of practice. Things changed, didn't they? I used to rail at people for making noise when they had metal spoons instead of wooden spoons, rattling the bones of the Buddha, and then secretly go and steal their metal spoons and put it in the same place. Things keep changing. Isn't that great? And then there's the refrain, it's time to stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Yeah. It's kind of like music. And how when somebody like Michael plays music like he did tonight, or Jordan plays music, or Amanda plays music, I'm carried by it. I know what the next note is going to be. I don't play music, but I know what the next note is going to be. And there it is, and there it is. I'm being carried, and I'm carried. And then it stops. sometimes abruptly on the upbeat, sometimes slowly as it fades. And the silence inside and out of me is just, you know. So, paranoia strikes deep. Oh yeah. Anybody have ideas like that? So paranoia, something's wrong. My meditation isn't good. I'm doing it wrong. You know, they're making those noises because they know it disturbs me. Paranoia strikes deep into your life. It will creep. Creep is a good word. It feels like that. It kind of creeps. And another good word is specificity. That guy's word. What's his name? Being able to, for me, that specificity is such a great word, is about noticing what was going on the moment before something happened, is one way of phrasing it. But it's just about noticing. The EQ, attention. Well, EQ, yeah, that's his way of doing it. For me, it's like, good to notice. Oh, that's good to notice. Noticing how the paranoia creeps. Where does it creep from? Is it like down here? Is it up here? In the body and so on. It starts when you're always afraid. So if you're paranoid, that's what you're afraid of. Look into that. Are you afraid? But if it's really true, okay, back up. I'm afraid people are following me. Okay, and if they are, then to just be able to have curiosity, be interested in like, what is the texture of this experience inside of me? What does it taste like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What does it sound like? Okay, I'm going to play this song. It's just a couple of minutes. You probably know it. But I think there might be an ad first. We'll see. Let's see what happens. So maybe not.
There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. There's bad lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds are getting so much resistance from behind. Now we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What a field day for the heat. 1,000 people in the street, singing songs and they carrying signs. Mostly saying hooray for our side. It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? What's going down? Paranoia strikes deep into your life, it will creep. It starts when you're always afraid. Step out of line, let come and take you away. Never stop, hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down now. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down now. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down now. What's that sound?
I was thinking about how if you ever speak a foreign language, speak another language, and how much that is of being able to hear the music of that language, the music of it, the rhythm of it, the way it goes up and down, goes around, And it's the same with this language that we're learning here, doing this practice to be able to hear the music. Can you hear the music? Thank you.